Good evening, everyone. My name is David Kafka, your host for All Access Belize, and want to welcome you tonight for our edition for March. And we have a very exciting guest tonight. We're always talking about education. Everybody who's looking to move to Belize or interested in Belize is always wondering about education. And especially now that we have a lot of nomadic workers coming, we are seeing a lot of people moving here with kids. So before we invite our guest, I just wanted to welcome everyone. And I just got back from Dallas about 2 hours ago, and I had a meetup with my investor group, and I had the privilege of meeting Chris Gronkowski. He was on Shark Tank, and he invented this ice shaker. And it was so cool talking to him about his entrepreneurial journey. And if you think you know who that was, Chris did play for the Dallas Cowboys for a year. He also played for a couple other teams, but his brother, Rob Gronkowski, is a big Patriots guy who's still in the NFL or might have retired this year. So it's everybody always asks me why I go out and travel so much. And that's what I'm doing, is I'm going out and continuing to learn and better myself, kind of like how we're talking about with Ms. Jan tonight, Miss Knight. And, you know, I'm always trying to better myself as well. So I did just come in. So just a brief update on traveling into Belize. As you know, we still have, you have to have a COVID test, a negative COVID test to come into the country. And I did have to take one here because I didn't bring a negative test. So I thought they canceled that, but I guess not. It must just be from coming in from the land borders. But I did take one, and we do have to have the insurance, the COVID insurance, before you come in, but you can buy it here, but it's a longer line. So it's always best if you come in and bring your insurance policy, if you will. Also, I'd like to just remind and welcome everybody to come to our special edition, March 14th of All Access Belize, and it's 7 o'clock Central Time. And we're going to be talking about the Belize Business Zone. I kind of mentioned it in my newsletter last week, and it's going to be really exciting talking about that. So without further ado, we'll introduce our guest. And if you have questions, put them in the question and answer box. And I am on my iPad. My laptop kind of didn't get power while I was in Dallas, so I took it to the Apple store to get checked. Rebecca's kind of managing everything. She's my COO for my companies, and she's kind of, you know, helping us with the webinar tonight. So let's get into Ms. Knight. Tell us about yourself, where you're from, where do you live, what you're doing, and then we'll kind of get into some questions.
Excellent. Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening, David.
Good evening.
I'm delighted to be invited to come and share some of my adventures. I was born in England, in Bedfordshire, and I lived there through my mid-30s, married, 2 children, went back to school as a mature student to become a teacher, qualified in 1977. I went to work in the preschool nursery sector in Britain, in England. I was a head teacher for 4 years. Then I decided to make a major life change and moved to Colorado in 1987 and began my own school there, a private, for-profit British nursery curriculum school in the mountains of Colorado. I was living there for more than 25 years, and most of that time I taught. I went into the public sector after doing founding my own school. And I was introduced to the Montessori curriculum in 2000 and went back to school, lifelong learners as we all are, David is included there, and got my degree in Montessori elementary education, and returned to take the math piece in upper elementary, which is lower elementary would be 6 to 9 years old, and upper elementary would be 9 to 12. So I was particularly fascinated by the math curriculum, so I went back to learn more. So I taught in a Montessori school, a charter school in Colorado. And then I decided that I was going to leave Colorado and look for somewhere to set down some roots in the Caribbean. So I traveled extensively. I really was looking for somewhere where I could start a school. That was always my long-term vision. I wanted to serve whichever community I was a part of, where I lived. And I just kept coming back to Belize. You know, Belize gets under your skin, and I love that it's an English-speaking country, obviously my native language, so I can teach in English. And I finally settled here, really put down roots in 2014, and went to work for a private school here, an academy here in Placencia, where I was head of the early years, aged 3 through 9, for 3 years. I taught in the preschool initially and introduced the Montessori curriculum to that school, and then followed that group up into beginner, infant 1, infant 2 the following year. And then the third year I was there, I took the math curriculum into the whole school and taught in every class, schedule and on a plan through the week. That was exciting. I also did math club after school activity. As you can tell, I really enjoy teaching Montessori math. Then in 2016, we started, my daughter and her partner moved here, and we decided to start our own program. So the Peninsula Art Company was initiated, and initially when I was teaching at the other schools, so Krishana and Adam did summer schools, art camps, and became well known in the community for their provision, for their program. And then I started teaching there with my daughter Krishana in 4 years ago. We're in our fourth, I believe it's 4th year that we've been, we've actually operated as an academic program. But for me, the primary emphasis is on the whole child. And that's one of the reasons I really enjoy the Montessori method. It's a way of learning, not what you learn, because you follow the child and you find out what they're passionate about, and then teach them. Really what you're doing is giving them the skills to look it up and research for themselves as they, that's where we're moving to all the way through the program, building independence, critical thinkers. We're really interested in nutrition. We provide all the food. It's hot, freshly cooked, home-based meals there. Very important to my heart. We were very fortunate during the COVID lockdown. We were able to remain open albeit with a lesser percentage of children. And we were able to meet from the July of 2020 onwards, and we haven't closed our doors since then. Very fortunate. And so we're right in the middle of our year, just coming up towards the end of this second term, and just introducing local children. We really encourage local families to be part of our program because we work closely with parents. I find that we see more immediate and progress of development when we're all on the same page and we work together. So I do a lot of parent-teacher meetings as needed, and we really communicate with our families, and our doors are open to all. We have a scholarship program, and it's more important, honestly, that the family be committed to our program and really want to learn about what we're doing and how we work than it is about whether they have the finances. So we work with all comers, and right now we have 10 children on roll. We're looking to build and probably take a couple more in next term, and we're licensed for 15 total, 15, 16.
Sure.
So that's kind of a version, but if there's any questions or anything people would like to, ask, I'm really open to any.
Very good. Yes, if you have any questions, just reach out, and until somebody does, I'm going to ask you a few questions. So when people come here, they're always wondering what they're going to do for their kids for school. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between what we would call a public school, a government school? Tell us a little bit about, if you know, why the churches are part of a lot of the schools here, the difference between Montessori and regular private school.
Certainly. To begin with, when people are deciding to move here, quite often we do have Zoom consultations with people to talk about what we have to offer. I have to say that I'm not really au fait with what is on offer at the public school, so I can only talk generally about that.
Yes.
I have made relationships with some of the teachers at St. John's, but yes, here in Placencia. But all in all, I haven't taught in the public school system in Belize at all, and I'm feeling like right now there's a move to really look again at what we're offering educationally. And I think one of the biggest challenges for the public school system, as I see it, entirely my own opinion, is that the teachers must be overwhelmed by the number of students in the classes.
Agreed.
I think that's probably the biggest hindrance to to overall progress, because you really always, if you have that many children, it means that some are going to fall through the gaps. They're going to, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So the ones that, behavioral issues and the emotionally immature children, the children who are having a really hard time socializing, that they're going to take a lot of your time, and sometimes the others can miss the boat. The other thing I see is that the children in the public school often are seated for the whole time that they're in school. And I've come to believe that children need to move around, and all the time they can be encouraged to sit at a desk, but it's their choice. There in our school, there's a variety of places where children can work. There might be individual tables, group tables. Some activities are better suited to working on the floor. I personally give lessons on the floor, with the children in a circle sitting on cushions. And I think Montessori believes that from 0 to 6, there are sensitive periods that all children go through. And it's like a window of opportunity where the learning is really emphasized. And one of those areas is the sensitive period for movement. It's amazing how much children learn to develop their gross and fine motor skills between just 0 and 1 years old. And then you think about learning to walk and, take it from there. So I think it's really difficult and not really ideal if children are seated at a desk in one place for a lot of the time. Montessori believes that we prepare the teachers and the guides in the program, prepare the environment. And so everything is at child level, and you're building independence by showing the children how to use the materials that they can reach. If there's a lesson or a work on the shelf that they haven't had the lesson for, then they're invited to return it and offered an alternative. So in a way, all of the works that are offered to the children are dependent on obviously the age group you have and the particular needs of the children that you have. And they change, they're constantly changing. We're adding, we're moving forward as concepts are learned or internalized. I like teaching a multi-age group, and in the public school, my understanding is that everybody is there in the same age group. If you're an infant 2, you're 7, going on 8. If you're standard 1, you're 8, going on 9. I like to open up the program so that it's more like, we used to call it in America, the old little, what was it? One-room schoolhouse.
Okay.
Because
so
yeah,
everybody sits in the same classroom, no matter the age group, and they just are working on their own stuff.
Yes, we start the day together, and then everybody is sent off to work at their own level. Sometimes we offer a lesson that everybody is engaged in, because that builds the sense of community in the school, but everybody comes to it at a different point. And so, for example, if we're in language, if we're doing an object box work, I have little objects that I use for phonics work, and maybe we would be doing the sound. So all the objects start with or they have in them somewhere, like mushroom, mask, mammal, and and then each of the objects has a word that goes with it, and the M is in red, so it's highlighted. And then the children are invited to take an object and to draw it in their journal and label it. Now, with the 3-year-olds, the ones that have just started, we might just rule their journal in half, and they might just do 2 objects on 1 page. My 7-year-olds, I will be dividing their journal into boxes so that there might be as many as 10 boxes, and then inviting them to go off and do 4 of the objects that they see on the mat, 4 without labels, word labels. So they've got to write their own label using their sounds, and maybe a further 2 that they must look up in the dictionary. So it's called differentiated instruction. And so you can take one activity and you can make it appropriate for every layer. And sometimes the curriculum comes around. So when you reintroduce the box the following year, they come at it, they've seen it before. The 3-year-olds, now 4, might be invited to do 6 of it. Also means that they can actually show the younger ones how to do it. So they're becoming, so you often find out what children know by inviting them to show other children and to teach themselves. It shows mastery, you know. So, and also, you know, the very young ones are often, they're observing the older ones. So we really emphasize the behavior of the older ones. We call them honey guides. It's like there's, you know, they're actually modeling how to be in any situation. And you know yourself that children will usually do what you do, not what you say. The older ones, you know, will model for them. Now, there's times when the groups are naturally separated. For example, the younger ones will have a nap, and the older ones usually will do a read and spell, or will do a personal research of an animal or a country, a topic. So we're working with their needs. We're driven by what they want to know about. I mean, obviously there's an element of you are going to read and you are going to know numbers. And so those things are, there's no choice there. But when it comes to the bigger curriculum, often it's, we prepare the environment and then they come in and they find what they want, how to take at what they will. And it's also the same outside. And I think a lot of schools, I'm sad when I drive by schools and I don't see stimulating outside play areas. And I know there's a problem with finances and funding and everything, but for me, the outside, children love to be outside, digging in the ground and playing with water and planting seeds and looking up bugs, and you know, and I think that there's a whole curriculum here. We're so blessed with the country that we live in.
For sure.
You know, sometimes I don't think we really utilize the gifts, you know, that we've been given here.
Right. What are your ages that you teach in your school?
It has changed over the time we've been open. Initially, we started with 2-year-olds. We took 2 to 5-year-olds, but then as the children became older, we closed the window, the toddler, because toddlers, it's not appropriate. We talk about the one-room schoolhouse. Toddlers, and by that I mean children 0 to 3.5. Toddlers, they need to be at home still, or in a small group. There's not much advantage for them to be in a program like ours. I would like to do some work, and I'm actually excited. There's a group of families that have 2-year-olds who are looking to enroll their children with us, and I'm going to set up a curriculum so they can do a play group, and the mums and the small children can come together, but the activities can be, you know, more structured, and areas of what they're doing. And obviously I can encourage them not to teach some of the bad habits that come in at 3.5, Right
Yeah.
now we're taking 3.5-year-olds, so fully toilet trained, hopefully verbal,
Mhm.
but not always.
Mhm.
And we're going up to 8 at this
Okay.
point.
And
So
what's your favorite age to teach?
my favorite, right, what I'm teaching, whatever I'm teaching, that's my favorite age right there, because
Gotcha.
that's what I've got to, that's what makes my heart sing, you know.
Got
I've been doing this a long time. I I'm feeling I'm drawn definitely to the older ones in the group. I
Mhm.
think because obviously they've been with me a long time, and now I'm just excited because they understand the method, so I can really start flying with them,
Right.
in lots, and I can be very specific about what they need by
Right.
looking at their work. If you're very observant as a teacher, you can tell what children need to know. We just did a project on adjectives, for example, and it really made our writing explode because
Mhm.
I was inviting them, tell me about the noun, tell me about the place,
Right.
describe it in your words.
Right.
So yeah, whatever age I'm teaching, I enjoy all of them. And after a while you make a lesson plan, and honestly, when you teach Montessori, you definitely have an overall plan, and there's an
Mhm.
individual plan for each child and what you want them to succeed in, and you work on what they can do rather than think what they can't do. You build up, and then you sort of hone in to really what where they are, their that developmental age, and it shifts all the time. Obviously the needs are different even
Yep.
with the same child. You can have needs one week and you can work through, and then it changes and it shifts. It's like peeling an onion, but you're constantly inviting them to find out who they are, and be comfortable in their own body, and to
Very
be
good.
and aware of the group,
Wow.
and respectful of the group. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So Rebecca's gonna put in the chat box how to get in touch with Miss Knight and her school, because they are in Placencia. So if you're moving to Placencia and you're interested in getting on a Zoom call or going to visit the school, reach out to Miss Knight or Kashana, her daughter. Are there any other Montessori schools in Belize? Because we
I
do
believe
have
there
people
is.
that listen throughout the whole country. Some like Corozal, some like San Pedro. So I just
Yes.
want if there's any others in the country.
I have seen on the ministry mailing list, emailing list, I have seen one other Montessori school. I believe it's in the north. I believe
Okay,
it's in Belize City. I
Belize City.
I I don't know. I do know that the Ministry of Education were looking at the Montessori method, and they were doing some in-service, what I call in-service, which is where teachers go back to school.
Yep.
And my assistant, when I taught at the academy here in Placencia, my assistant went on one of these in-service further education programs, and they were introducing Montessori materials. And I
Mm,
don't know how far that went, because obviously things all changed into
right,
2020, but I think there's a general awareness now
for sure.
internationally of
For
the
sure.
value of Montessori, and especially important when you're teaching a multilingual population. We have children who come to us whose mother tongues are French. We've had Spanish speakers. We've got Chinese a
Yep.
family.
Yep.
So we're and Montessori is a really, because it's so tactile, it's so hands-on. We're
Mhm.
looking at sharing concepts, not just with the ears, which in a lot of classrooms, if you're taught the old-fashioned way, chalk, talk, You know, you write things on the back blackboard and everybody's sitting.
Mhm.
You're engaging visual because you're writing things on the board and you're engaging the auditory, but you're not engaging the other senses. And that's how we learn, how we process and experience the world around us, is through our senses. And Montessori, Maria Montessori was an Italian doctor. She was the first woman doctor in Italy. And she worked near the slums in Rome, and she realized that these children were on the streets, and she opened a school. She called it the Children's House, and she just took these ragamuffins off the streets and gave them a prepared environment. And her curriculum and her materials developed from the observation of those children over many years. She was a very special lady, and we're really blessed though, because my daughter is a Waldorfian. She went to the Rudolf Steiner Waldorf, which is the emphasis. They're very similar in some ways, Montessori and Waldorf, but there's a really strong emphasis on the arts. And so I'm the academic piece, the language piece, the math piece. We kind of share the science curriculum because we're both passionate about that, as well as earth sciences and geography. But Kashana steps into her own when it comes to the expressive arts. And I think we make a good team because we balance each other.
Right. Good. What do you think about for the future of Belize? Let me see, what was I going to ask? Like education and technology. How do you think technology is affecting Belize, or is it affecting Belize? Are y'all using computers, or do they use computers in the schools in Belize? I'm
a bit of a Luddite when it comes to the technological revolution, honestly, David. I'll freely admit. But I did a lot of research in the 90s, and I was very, very impressed with the work done by Garto, a man called Robert Garto, who wrote a book called Unschooling. And I really changed my curriculum greatly after reading, and also having taught in the public school system, both in England. There they call it the state school. You know, the public school in England would be the private sector, like Eton, public schools. But state-run schools, which I was a head teacher of, I really don't think that children. I think that screen time should be severely limited with children. I think I believe that I think it can be supervised and pre-watched, previewed during the holidays. And if a child is ill or for some reason cannot attend, you know, the way we respond to that is to send hard materials home with the parents, and give the parents some instruction on what the work is about and what the concepts are that we're developing. But also I put together a playlist of videos that link in with what we're learning. So there's a lot of material online, which that really can be very appropriate. You know, like Jack Hartman videos. I'm particularly fond of that man. He's wonderful with all his silliness, but he introducing phonics in a way. I'm not very keen on children watching cartoons. I think the cartoons they're very salient. You know, you understand saliency. That's what children are attracted to, saliency, not content. It's the movement that they like. Plus, we're talking about senses, and you cannot experience the world through a screen.
This is
It's
true.
an amazing tool that we can use in the classroom. But you know, we've been studying this week, we've been studying the desert regions of the world. And in direct contrast, you can show a video of snow in Antarctica,
Right.
and you know, to give the children a sense, you know, and defrost the fridge and pull out all that stuff that sits on the side and put it in the water tray and let them play with it and feel it, because in Belize, the children, you know, they don't experience really cold things.
Right.
So, but I've been very dismayed, honestly, by the idea that very small children can be taught in Zoom classroom settings.
Yeah, I definitely do not like the Zoom classes. I think the kids are hurt by it. But before we go any further, I just want to say we have Jan Knight on the program with us tonight. She is the co-founder or the founder with her daughter Kashana for the Peninsula Art Company Childcare. They are in Placencia. It's a Montessori school, and we're just kind of talking about what Montessori is, kind of teaching in kids in school and things like that here in Belize. So I just wanted to kind of summarize it again. But I do agree that Zoom class is, you know, we've been doing Zoom class for what, 2 years now here, and sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 2 hours a day, and I just don't think they're learning, and I think it's hurting them more than anything.
No, it's a sad state of affairs.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
without going into, you know, I'm delighted that the mask requirements are starting to lift.
Yes.
I don't agree with children wearing masks at all.
I
I think
agree.
especially the babies, we're going to have, this is my prediction, and I think I've been saying this for the last 2 years, we're going to have a lot of children who aren't going to be able to speak properly because
Yes.
they haven't been able to see people's mouths move. I'm
I
already seeing it in the classroom.
I
And the
agree.
emotional, also there's an emotional element to being covered up.
Yes.
I'm delighted that the whole of this time we've been able to operate without
Yes.
any of those restrictions. You know, we initiated, you know, some hand cleaning, and
Yep.
we initiated some temperature taking at the beginning of the day. We keep an eye on symptoms because, you know, that's where disease starts. And so if you know that a child's, we also changed our time of opening so that people could get up in the morning and assess their children before they brought them to school. Because if you start work at 8 and you drop your child off at 5:02, the chances are you haven't really been able to they're still waking up, most children.
Right.
And, you know, so we decided to push it back and have a later ending to our day so that children didn't have to walk home in the blazing sun at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that we could wait until it cooled off a little bit. And we find that we're open the same number of hours, but we've shifted them back, and we find it works really well.
And I noticed take temperatures as well, right? You take the temperature of the children.
Yes. Yes.
What is your school year like? Is it the same? Do you observe the same holidays as the government schools do?
In the main, we do. Sometimes we have a day off in lieu because, you know, obviously our schedule, we can make up our schedule according to the needs of the parents as well and what's going on in our community. But mostly we follow Belizean holidays. We do sing the Belizean anthem at the end of every day. We celebrate where we are in the world, you know, that is our way of gathering together wherever we came from, you know, be it London or, the
Yeah.
Colorado or,
Yeah.
Beijing
Right.
or Paris. We are
Right.
right now in Belize, so we celebrate that, and the Belizeans have probably the best national anthem ever.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
it's no hardship to teach it and sing it and praise and respect the country where we've all ended up. Yeah.
Very good. Well, I appreciate you so much for joining us tonight. Rebecca put in the chat box. So if you're listening to this live or you're watching it on YouTube, she put in the chat box how to get in touch with Miss Jan, and she'll
Don't
talk.
hesitate.
Yeah,
Anybody, reach out,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
we would love to share what we're doing with other communities too. If there's anybody listening out there who has any Montessori background or an intense desire to want to learn more about it, I'm not going to be around a lot longer. So, you guys need to reach out and come and do some in service with us and help us, let us help you set up maybe similar programs. I think we need to stay intimate. We need
Yes.
lots of satellite because then there's lots of choice and people, one size does not fit all. And I think it's important that we all offer what we feel in our heart is the right thing to do. And I know some people are very excited about other forms of Reggio Emilio or or some of the like Waldorf I talked about, or but whatever we love to do. But if there's anybody out there who really wants to learn about Montessori, they're very, very welcome to come and spend some time with us and sort of do an apprenticeship and follow how we work, and so that they can do their thing in their own community. That would,
and then maybe you can expand, and then you'll be in San Pedro and Corozal and Punta Gorda.
knows, Belize honestly isn't that big of a country.
No, it's not.
Bishana's just telling me that the other Montessori school is in fact in Belmopan, and I think doesn't the orphanage in Belize City do they work with the Montessori method? I believe they might.
I don't know.
Anyway, but yes, and keep it small and intimate, and
Yes.
and quality of practice is what we're after. We're after people who are outside the box thinkers, who really want to know how to. Child development and psychology is a key, and you learn about that by observing, not only observing the children, but observing the lessons and the words that we use in the classroom, so that you can be more effective in what you're trying to impart.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks, Miss, for spending your last hour with us, talking about the Peninsula Art Company childcare in Placencia. If you're interested, please reach out. And don't forget, March 14th, we'll be talking about the Belize Business Zone, and that'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern, or Central, 7 p.m. Central. And Jan and Kashana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation, David. It's been a pleasure. And good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.